as we have already done with that mechanism of breathing, that how the intake of oxygen or how the giving out of CO2 take place, what are the organs or how the cavity actually respond that the oxygen it is liberated out and CO2 is liberated out and oxygen is taken in. We have already done that. So now we are going to start with the cellular respiration. So first of all, you should know that cellular respiration is respiration occurring at cell level. Now we are going to we already discussed that respiration is intake of oxygen. We have done this. It is oxidation of food and then giving out CO2. This is, we have done that, it involves these three processes. So as we have done that, how or you can say what are the mechanisms that is involved that oxygen is given out or CO2 is given out or O2 is taken in. So now we are going to see this oxidation of food, that how at cellular level the exchange of gases take place. So what happened, see, as we discussed this also, that oxygen enter from the nostrils, goes through nasal cavity, through pharynx, through trachea, through bronchi into two different lungs, that is primary bronchi, secondary, tertiary, bronchiole, and finally reaches the alveoli. And I told you that alveoli is the actual organ, actual respiratory organ through which the gaseous exchange take place. We did that also. So see, so what happened, through respiratory tract, oxygen reaches the alveoli. Oxygen reaches the alveoli through the tract. So now, and we also know that the diffusion of gases take place from higher concentration to lower concentration. That means the gas always moves from a region where it is present in excess to a region where it is present in a less concentration. So obviously oxygen is more here because it has been inhaled from outside. So obviously alveoli has a rich supply of oxygen. Around alveoli there are tuft of capillaries. So what happened, the oxygen in the alveoli is more as compared to the blood which is flowing out in the capillaries. So as we know, it moves from high concentration to low, so oxygen will move into the blood. Oxygen will move into the blood. This is the blood. In this I have made the flow of the, you can say, the passage of blood. Now in blood we have hemoglobin. So oxygen combined with hemoglobin to form a complex, that is oxyhemoglobin. That is oxyhemoglobin. We know that hemoglobin is a iron complex whose responsibility is to transport the gases by forming a complex. So this is what it is doing. It is forming a complex with the oxygen, that is the oxyhemoglobin. Now as the blood flow, this complex is present in the blood. This complex is present in the blood. But as it reaches the tissue, any tissue or in the body, so what happened, oxygen is more in the blood as compared to the tissue. So therefore this complex breaks up. This complex breaks up because the oxygen has to move from blood to tissue now, because the concentration is more in blood and less in tissue. So oxygen will move into the tissue, and in tissue we have the cell. So obviously the cell will use this oxygen for oxidation of food. That is food plus oxygen forming CO2 and energy. So now CO2 is more in tissue as it is being produced in the tissue or a cell. So that means CO2 is more in the cell. So therefore CO2 will move from the tissue or cell into a blood. Again the gas moves from higher concentration to lower. So CO2 moves outside. CO2 moves outside into the blood, and in blood also it combined with the complex, because as I told you that hemoglobin is responsible for transportation of any kind of gas by forming a respective complex. So it combines with this forming a complex, that is carbinohemoglobin. That is the carbinohemoglobin. So now this blood actually flows, and now this complex actually breaks up in the lungs, in the capillaries of the lungs, because the carbon dioxide is more in the blood, in the capillaries as compared to the alveoli. So this complex breaks up as CO2 will now move from blood to the alveoli and through a respiratory tract. The same thing, that is the bronchiole, primary, tertiary, secondary, primary bronchi, trachea, pharynx, and it is just liberated out, exhaled out through nostrils or mouth. So this is what is the you can say the passage of the gas, like how it get transported throughout the body. So you should know that it form a complex, that is the oxyhemoglobin and the carbinohemoglobin. So this is what is the cellular respiration, because as you have seen that it involves the activities occurring at the cell level also. So that means this process whole is called as cellular respiration. So whenever you get a question like this, so just try to first draw a flow chart like this as I made for you, and then just try to sum up few important points in a paragraph that you can write that the oxygen through a respiratory tract reaches the alveoli, as it is more in the alveoli as compared to the blood and capillaries, so it diffuses out forming a complex in the blood, that is oxyhemoglobin. Then it moves and this complex breaks up near the tissue because oxygen is more in the blood as compared to the tissue. So therefore oxygen moves into the tissue where the cells are present. They utilize it for oxidation of food. As a result, CO2 is produced. It is then it moves to a blood because it has less concentration of CO2, where it forms a complex carbinohemoglobin, and this complex breaks up in the lungs, and where the CO2 get exchanged from the capillaries into the alveoli, and then to a same respiratory tract it is liberated out. So this is what is a cellular respiration. But sometimes you must have seen that, you must have heard that the incomplete combustion of fuel is very very dangerous, because incomplete combustion of fuel, instead of liberating CO2, it liberates carbon monoxide. So what happened when you inhale this carbon monoxide, again it combines with hemoglobin, forming a defective complex, that is carboxyhemoglobin. This complex is a defective complex. So that is why persons suffer certain kind of respiratory disorder, and it can cause a serious suffocation and may cause a death also. So that means we need CO2, because CO2 is blood friendly this thing, and it form a blood friendly complex, so it doesn't harm us. But if we inhale CO, it is a fatal gas because it can cause suffocation by forming a defective complex, that is the carboxyhemoglobin. This I have told you just for your general knowledge. Otherwise, if you get a question for cellular respiration, you just need to mention this, right? So this is the cellular respiration, and moreover, like when you get a question based on the respiration, try, like if a question is like that, explain mechanism of breathing, then you have to explain only the mechanism of breathing involving the respiratory tract also. But if you get a question like of 5 marks that explain respiration means in a elaborated manner, then you need to mention 3 of the things, that is the tract also, you need to mention the mechanism of breathing also, and the cellular respiration. As we know that it comprises of all 3, then you have to explain all 3. So this is what is the cellular respiration.